So, Vaibhav, it's an absolute pleasure to have you here on the podcast. I'm very glad that Smartlead's founder is joining us in today's session. Maybe a bit of context about Smartlead who don't know yet. It's an email sequencer processing between 7 to 32 million emails a day. Vaibhav might correct me in a second, but this just explains you at what scale this company is operating. So, with this said, I'll give you the word, Vaibhav, and introduce yourself briefly and how you essentially got started with Smartlead.
Thank you. Firstly, beautiful pronunciation of the name. I haven't heard that way in a while, so thank you for that. Hi everyone. Sorry, I got a bit of a sniffle if you're listening to this on the podcast. It's winter over here in the other part of the world in Sydney. My name's Vaibhav. Usually shaved off the 6 letters to keep the 7, the 7th one, just because it's easy for people. Otherwise, I spend too much time in sales calls trying to explain my name. And that sort of leads to the fact that what we run is a sales platform, and we try to help people convert deals and conversations into revenue. That's the easy, high-branded conversation way of it. But if I want to go technical, it's a sequencer. You upload a bunch of leads, or you find leads on our platform. We can use the mailboxes that we provide and send out messages to them, get them on a call, and hopefully close the deal. If you have an outbound team, you would probably be using us or similar product to us. We also have a dialer to allow for people to do like a multi-channel experience at the same time as well. So that's as simple as that. We've had a bunch of cool stuff coming in terms of AI, as everyone does, but in short, where we help people send out emails.
And this at a very high scale. And
yes,
based on my research, I've seen that you've bootstrapped this company. So maybe tell me about the stages you essentially went through. How were the initial days? And now I assume you're in a much more comfortable situation, as I know. So maybe walk us through from the stages of the initiation of the company to the first growth stage. Maybe talk about these stages and what you learned.
For sure. Smartlead started off as a spin-off product of SmartWriter, which was basically one of the first, I'd like to hope so, personalization platforms. This was when like GPT and AI was like very, very new in like the early 2021s, I think so. We would basically go ahead and have people upload LinkedIn profiles. We'd find information about them and write like a personalized first line for them. That was kind of that. That was how SmartWriter started off. And then during the existence of SmartWriter, we had a lot of people who wanted us to integrate different tools. Hunter, Snovio, etc. And one of the common questions that would come up quite often from people was like, we find it really annoying that we have to go ahead and constantly, rotate mailboxes because we run out of limits and so on and so forth. So it was a genuine need that people had, and we thought, cool, why not just take a wild bet and see if this works? I remember telling my team members then, saying, hey guys, who knows? We'll probably make 10K MRR, if anything. So let's just give it a shot. And obviously now we're here, and we send out 10,000 emails every couple of seconds or a minute or so right now. So very grateful and very blessed to be where we are. And what else can I add in terms of growth story? It's funny because I think the one difference for me with SL compared to any other tool is as simple as customer support was the original thing. We're trying to still make that better. I think till date, the biggest problem I try my best to solve is support at scale and how to make that better. And support is not just customer support. It's the user experience, education, conversations. It's everything, right? Support in general does not mean the chat bot. It can be a lot of steps before that. That's what support actually also involves. So education content pieces, working with people who have well-spaced knowledge in this industry, and then getting them to, collaborating with them, doing these office hours. We do office hours every week or so, and we get thousands of people to show at those events to learn a bit more about outbound and lead gen and what's happening in the market. So the original days were pretty much just showing up on WhatsApp groups, the dark internet. People would ask questions. I would answer them saying, here's how you do it, here's how I've done it. And it was not bullshit, because that was already me running SmartWriter, 521, and several other companies for a couple of years, so the little that I know. And then, it was just showing up every day, speaking to people, showing up on chat, them asking questions, not only answering them, but also building the thing that they want us to build in a matter of a few hours, and then messaging them saying, hey, I've done this. Mm-hmm. And then repeating that again and again and again. I think we did that. I did that for 100 days, and then that's how we built a bit of tiny little bit of momentum. So I was the only customer support person for the first 8 months, 8.5 months of the business. I think that was the original growth phase. Then that was culminated with us going into, I wanted to focus on content for the longest time because previous companies I worked on, and I realized the tailwind value of SEO. So we did that. We worked with a bunch. That was phase 2. Then phase 2.5 involved us working with a lot of people that promoters and supporters, people who ran a lot of these communities. We would work with them to go ahead and propagate the growth of SL. And then the other engine also then involved us working with a lot of people in terms of them creating courses and content. We'd reach out to them to see if they'd be open to, working with Smartlead in terms of when they're creating their content and so on and so forth. And then that part also added in during this entire experience, we'd also be doing our own outbound, sending out our own messages to our own leads to see how many of those would jump on calls, demos, etc., and convert. But yeah, it wasn't like here's phase 1, phase 2, phase 3, phase 4. Right now we're on all channels, right? We pump everywhere. But I'd say the biggest one on phase 1 was, I forgot, is what the world calls word of mouth, which is just people talking about the product and us trying to create an experience where it makes it easy and more fun for people to actually share the results on social. So that's why we stick to very distinct colors. How much ever we leer away from the brand or grow the product, we need to maintain very distinct colors because that dashboard has to be very consistent because that recall is built on that dashboard. So a lot of that was a social side of it as well, and just people just liking the product the way it was built. And then during that time was when the market was moving towards a PaaS type approach. So when we built Smartlead originally, we approached it as an API first product. So that's why even right now, I think 180, 190, or we might have crossed 200 endpoints as well. And a lot of people have then, as a result, built multiple companies exist on top of Smartlead as well right now in top of the API. So lots of different things.
Okay, so there's so many things I want to dive deep into. What I find really interesting is your customer success philosophy, but I need to pick one. And the first one that I pick is, I've heard that you were one of the earliest customers of OpenAI. So you were
Yes.
one of the earliest. So you essentially are a massive pioneer in the whole agentic GTM space. How did you come across OpenAI back in the days when it was just GPT-3 and the API?
Yeah, so SmartWriter originally was basically, so I'll step back a bit more further, right? No genius, it was just serendipity to an extent. So I ran an AI forecasting platform when AI was whatever it was, and we couldn't do paid ads and we couldn't do a lot of content because the customers were selling to basically small businesses and restaurants and cafes. So I had to do a lot of offline work and had to do a lot of outbound because these guys are not going to go ahead and sign up through a Facebook campaign or like search for us on Google, even though we did the Google part. So what I would literally do is I would hire a bunch of people in the Philippines and get them to write personalized emails, like full-scale LinkedIn messages. Back in the day, LinkedIn did not have like big limitations, and we could literally run jQuery automations, and it wasn't as intense as it was nowadays, right? This is 2016 type of time, 2016 times, yeah. And that problem was clearly an issue. And I think I saw someone, I was working in co-working space and someone saw that. I was like, oh, this is really cool that you're getting people to do this. I was like, yep. They did the same thing. Then we were desperate to get our previous product to work and it wasn't running the way it was. I mean, it did its job and we exited that, thankfully. Thanks God. Thanks to God's grace. And then what we did right after that was we said, okay, coincidentally, we were on Twitter. I was on Twitter, and there was this thing called OpenAI GPT or something that came out because GPT-2 was live at that point. So GPT-3 just rolled out, and they said this whole personalization thing you can use via the API and so on and so forth. And I was like, this is such a painful problem right now because even with Scenario, and we were moving out from Scenario going to SmartWriter, I had to send manual messages, and if I just automated that one piece, problems will be solved. And it was a nice solution. It was great. I showed a bunch of people, did the whole validation. It was cool. So it was a stumble upon that I saw it on Twitter. Then they were being very specific about the people they would give access to. You'd have to go and apply on beta and so on and so forth. That was always happening. And then I'd see heaps of people actually create different startups. And I was like, man, we're missing out. And I tell my team we're really missing out on this golden opportunity. So I sent a Loom video with a pitch deck or something to Greg Brockman. I think he was just another guy on Twitter back then. Obviously now he's a very big shot. I was like, please give me access. I want to do AI for legal. and it'll help people review like their legal documents and so on and so forth. That was the pitch, because I didn't think he would care about the lead gen part. Yeah, right. And then he gave me access immediately. Like, I have a DM with him inviting me and all that jazz, which is great. No one thought of them being whatever they are. And then back in the day was when we started with the GPT. So this whole concept of prompt engineering, and I think not just me, I think all of us originally, we were doing this. We just did not know what it was called. It was prompt engineering, where we would basically create texts of things where I would give a LinkedIn profile, ask it to make sense of it. It would not. So then what we would do is we would scrape the description with a certain prompt, then it would make one sentence, then I would take that sentence and pass it on to the next prompt and say, this is the first sentence, so create another sentence based on the first, because it was really bad back then, right? You'd have Babbage, Ada, Da Vinci, and I forgot there was one more of them at that point. So we would work with these different models to basically start creating that, and then, of course, ChatGPT came out, the world got excited, and then we realized that sooner than later, we had a product, we didn't have a business. So, and that was very indicative of the churn that was happening on SmartWriter. So that's when we said, let's try see if Smartlead can give us something. Because one thing we realized with the whole OpenAI part, which the world is recognizing right now, is I was like, I'm renting the land that I stay on. So whatever happens, if these guys decide to just say this beats the policy, we're lost.
Right. So maybe on this note, where I'm pretty impressed about is that you were directionally always right, kinda, especially also with the move going API first. Back in the days, I assume you didn't have a lot of customers on the API,
no.
But now with agents, and I'm glad to dive into some Claude Code use cases, which you also posted on LinkedIn. It is an incredible play to have essentially every endpoint, or you're more or less exposing every feature as an endpoint. And this makes it very straightforward in the agent economy to let agents use Smartlead. So maybe tell us about a couple of great examples, what you're currently running internally or customers are running on Smartlead's API with Claude Code as an example.
Yeah, so look, again, it was semi-accidental, semi-not, because when we built the API, back then was the entire automation drive, N8N, Zapier, they're all picking up everyone. Yeah, no code. Like everyone was, they were called automation engineers, right?
Yes.
And
that's actually my first role, funnily enough.
Oh,
that's how I.
Oh, there you go, right? So a lot of the people started using us for that perspective, and it became easy for us to sort of work on that part. And then when the agentic side of came into it, it was very easy for us to make that transition. And it's all sorts of different things. I mean, to be honest with you, as to how people use SL. A lot of the time, people use SL's API on the Claude Code side, less for like uploading leads and the generic work, but it's more so a lot of it with the analysis and data pool. Mm-hmm. So they're trying to figure out what type of copy worked for what type of campaign, how to hyper-personalize things, different tagging structure systems, rotating mailboxes. It's widespread. There will be people who would basically be pinging the endpoint every few minutes to basically see if the threshold of a bounce or a campaign's reply score or the velocity of replies being received has dropped. It's like, when they tell you when you're popping popcorn, if popcorn is taking more than 3 pops in a second, then it's ready. So people have this thing where if there's n amount of replies not coming within n amount of hours, to then automatically pause the campaign, see which leads are working well, which are not, and then adjust, pull, remove mailboxes based on bounces, a whole orchestration of things that people end up doing. So it's not one thing, there's lots of things people end up doing. It really depends upon what you're trying to tinker on. And the alternate side is people just build full businesses on top of us. I'd call them cousin companies. They're not necessarily, there's two sets. There'll be people who basically build, they have like there's a social influencer platform that does outreach. So the sequencer is just like an add-on to their product. Yeah. It's not their actual core product at all. So that's one type of customer. And there'll be like a product which is literally like a database solution, and they want to have a sequencer on top, which is where our tool fits in right well and sweet. So we white label a lot of the popular tools in the market right now, which we can't and can name. And that also helps to the point where I think you asked me some of the growth structures we've done. Sorry, I'm pivoting a bit. One of the things that we did do as the reason why I did the API was because I was burnt with the whole SmartWriter churn thing. Yep. I wanted to do something sticky. And one thing we realized is once people build an API, they never leave it. So that's why we did API first, is because once they integrate into the system, it's very hard. They They can't be bothered to let go. And that came from my developer days, because everyone hated Salesforce, but everyone still used Salesforce. It's simply because it had the most robust endpoint, right? Of course, we didn't want to be hated, but that was point in case that once someone integrates into it on a developer perspective, they rarely leave it. So that was also part of the reason why we went on the API side.
But let me challenge that a bit. While I agree this is much more sticky, but nowadays with Claude Code, it's much easier to build out integrations. It takes
I meant this was 2022.
Okay.
Yeah, so I'm saying one of the reasons why we went API first back in the day was also because I wanted to fix retention, and I was constantly like, I don't want to happen what happened with SmartWriter. So how do I fix retention? I was like, cool, let's do the API, because once these guys build the API, there's now that is not the sticky factor at all. If in fact, it's a counter sticky point of it. So I'm with you on that for sure.
But maybe let's zoom out a bit further and let's try to make it more structurally easy for people to understand what they should focus on if they want to set up a GTM motion in cold email. There's so many moving parts. There's deliverability, there's the leads, which need to be verified. If you could break it down for the customers which are new to cold email, what do you usually tell them what they should focus on exactly?
Yeah. I'll sort of do the anti-pattern piece. Maybe it's anticlimactic, but also probably not at the same time. People go to extreme lengths where they wait for the tide of the ocean to go up a certain centimeter so that they can send an email. They over-engineer it. It's very simple. Firstly, do you know what you're selling? You probably do. Do you know who you're selling to? You should probably figure that out. If you don't even think about outbound, right? Or like anything else. Just figure out who you want to sell this to, what problem you're solving for who. Start with the list. Once the list is done, then from the list you build an offer. An offer, when I say you start with the list, means let's just, give me an example. Let's just say someone's trying to sell marketing services or lawyers. Cool, right? You're selling legal services to businesses. Let me just go with that. You can sell to small business, mid business, and enterprise. So the small business, the offer is going to be around like a startup friendly package. It could be pre-packed products. When all the lawyers charge a ridiculous amount, you can tell them, hey, $500 a month, flat fee, you get this. It's like a pre-built product, right? It's like an AI chatbot or some drama like that you can offer them, or whatever it is, right? So that's one offer. Mid-market, it's to do ahead and say that you will have something where you have a dedicated lawyer available, like a forward deployed lawyer. You don't need to worry about having a full legal team, whatever it is. And then enterprise could be some other problem where you're a technically adept lawyer and you can work on blockchain, AI, etc., and you're not just another, suit and tie. And that starts with the list. You know what you're selling. Each person, you're still selling the same product, but just different ways in the way you'd sell the same product. That's 90% of the work. After that, you just need to get the bunch of mailboxes, or basically the messengers, ready. We usually recommend you to warm your mailboxes. Warm-up's very simple. It's the equivalent of, imagine, let me put it this way. If you were to start an email platform yourself, like an Outlook or Gmail, someone signed up today and they sent out 50,000 messages tomorrow. Obviously, even you, who's not technical, you'd be like, yeah, that sounds wrong. So the warm-up concept over here is to just sort of like massage the programmatic engine on Gmail and Outlook to work and build up a bit of a reputation, which is an invisible score that you can assume that exists. And that's just done so that there's longevity in the mailboxes and you don't have high bounces that end up happening. Bounces just don't happen because the leads don't exist. They also happen because Google and Outlook are like, yeah, your time's up. I'm going to start rejecting your messages. And that's it. Warm up your mailboxes, start sending emails, and then you'll have replies showing up. You just need to get them on a call, or because like a platform like Smartlead or equivalent will have a dialer. So the second reply comes, you don't even need to respond back or something because attention span is ridiculously low. The reply, get them on a call, be like, hey, just saw your message. Thank you. When can I book a time with you? That's it. That's your outbound motion in place.
Understood. And there's another point that I want to talk about, which is the customer success part, which we didn't really have much time to talk about. What stood out to me, first of all, you started very much with organic growth, word of mouth through groups, but I think you put another notch on top of it by inviting some of your customers to an event. What was the thought process behind that, to inviting, I think it was it an offsite in Thailand?
Oh, yeah. Sorry,
Exactly.
The one we did recently. Yeah. I think to your point, you raise a challenge saying that with Claude Code, APIs and everything can be done. So when I'll ask you a question, right? You said you're in Switzerland. What's a commoditized product in Switzerland?
Chocolate.
Say rice. I was gonna not go with chocolate, but let's take chocolate, yeah, because it is commoditized.
Yeah, I mean,
right?
generally, like most of nutrition is a commodity.
Right. So let's just maybe go with
Rice.
Let's just go with rice.
Yep.
Now, if you were to select rice brand A and rice brand B, what would be your decision process?
I mean, based on the value that I get out of it.
I mean, it's rice. You're not even having a value conversation at that point, right? So when you have a commoditized product, you go into classic business case studies where if you reduce the price of rice too much, people think it's poor quality. If you increase the price of rice too much, but you don't do one other thing, people are like, yeah, it's the same shit. Doesn't matter. You increase the price of rice, but you have to back it with some social proof. And that social proof can be branding. It can be new positioning. It can be like protein rice, I don't know, for gym takers, whatever might be the case. But the perspective over here is what SaaS business need to realize is we've now entered the commoditized market, meaning technology is no longer a divider or a decider between one or the other, which means people will decide based on brand, which means you need to start selling SaaS like a commodity. The way you sell a commodity is very different to when you sell a unique valued product. The way you sell commodity is built on brand, is built on trust, is built on positioning, is built on omnipresence, is built on basic functionality, and it's built on extreme dependability, right? It's always there, it's always available, it always works, right? And then what you can do is you can also sell commoditized products through resellers, wholesalers, distribution partners, basically, right? To get to the end customer in the most productive and efficient way. The other thing you do is you can do, like you'd see this, is you have celebrity endorsements, which is the equivalent of influencers, right? So you'll see this happen right now across the world in the entire market. I think Whisperflow is a good example. They recently started doing an ad campaign with Stephen Bartlett. Mm-hmm. What's a podcaster have to do with a productivity tool? Do this? Everything, because he's trusted. Steven's a guy who cares about time and presence and everything. He's trusted because literally in the Google I/O conference, if you've seen, they have introduced their own Whisperflow. Like you don't need Whisperflow as a tool. You can just use the new whatever and you can get voice to text in any language, zero computational problems, all that jazz, zero subscription. So I think the world needs to move towards selling products that they have as a commoditized tool. And not saying you commoditize your product, have unique value, there's data, that's another conversation for us to have. But we need to start getting into a market where we don't sell SaaS as here's this something super cool thing that does not exist and I've invested $15 million through VCs to do software engineering for it, because you can do that through a Claude Code subscription. But like I said, you sell it through trust, because if they were to use your platform over something else, it's simply because you've got the miles for it. They can trust you versus them billing it on their own. There'll always be a market that will do it themselves, etc. But I think I read a fun little quote the other day, two things, which is, if that was the case, everyone would break their own bread. We still buy bread.
Makes sense. So maybe as a closing question, what should we as a go-to-market space focus on in the next 1 to 2 years now that AI agents are here? What is your advice, or don't AI agents matter at all? The principles still stay the same. What is your advice there?
No, they do. I mean, that's kind of the point I was trying to get at with this whole branding perspective, right? Is I think GTMEs, go-to-market engineers, how are you going to skin the cat and brand them and label them? Your goal over here is to basically bring new products to market and get hype and energy in the early days, right? If your goal is that, you need to ask yourself, what is different from you and your competition? Most likely nothing on a technology perspective. The other thing is your data. So when you're trying to go ahead and reach out to the open market and you're trying to sell something to someone, your offers need to be driven based upon something unique based upon you that no one else has. It could be 20 years in the market, trust vectoring, data, assets, access to information that no one else does, branding, whatever may be the case. And then the other part of it is, yes, GTM engineers need to be very agentified. They need to be very forefront. You cannot just go ahead and exist like you existed in the past. You need to exist in a way where you are technologically 10 times ahead of everyone else. You're reaching out to the right person at the right time at the right place, which also means signals. That's another part. Yes. I don't think we spend a lot of time on, which is knowing when to sell to someone, right? That's a very important part as well. Your ideal customer persona is not just about someone who needs something, but they need it at a certain time. You should not sell classic. I mean, I know this is stuff people hear, but if it feels nice to hear on the ear, right, is you never sell, you sell water outside of a gym. You do not sell it outside of, I don't know, like a Coca-Cola shop or something. People are not, so when the demand exists, you need to go there. And the way you do that is through agentic work cycles, which is you need to scrape the internet, understand what are signals that will build relevance for something. And this is beyond just funding rounds, or it's beyond just people going ahead and, seeing job changes. Everyone does the same thing. You want to be doing things that are very specific. Yeah, you want to go extremely modern, right? This is also not modern. This is something people have done for years, which is if you're selling deliverability services, scrape their domains, scrape their mailboxes, check their MX records. Simple stuff like this is what's done in 2024, but even more so possible now. If you're trying to sell legal services to the example that we said, the first thing you probably want to go and do is understand how long they've been incorporated for as a business, right? And what type of customers they sell to. You can easily do this through like a Clay tool, or even your own Claude Code, which is ask AI to personify who do you think they sell to. And they'll say, oh yeah, this person is an agency. They sell to these type of companies. If it's an agency, that means they probably have contracts. So you probably want to reach out to them saying, hey, you look like you're this type of agency that does it. So there's multiple things that you can do right now to actually get that information out and then make things happen that are automatively of value for customers. So it's best time for you to be a GTME because the biggest issue you had back in the day was technology, and now that's completely removed. So however creative you are is how good the deals you get.
Lovely said. So with this, I really want to thank you for your time, and I wish you the best with Smartlead. And yeah, thanks for your time.
Easy. Thank you so much, and thank you for having me.